When I see birches bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice, a sunny winter morning after a rain. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust. Such heaps of broken glass to sweep away. You would think the inner dome of heaven had fallen.
Tuesday, March 12, 1991 begins as a typical late winter day in central Indiana. You might find Clinton Countyans talking about Frankfort's proposed skateboard ordinance. In today's Frankfort Times, Forest residents learned they'll be getting service from Kokomo Gas. Rossville folks are still excited over the weekend announcement that Jennifer Jacoby has been named Miss Basketball. Bob Knight is certainly a topic at most corner coffee shops. He exchanged heated words with Illinois' Lou Henson after the Hoosiers defeated the Illini that weekend. We're all anxious to see our soldiers who will soon be returning home from Operation Desert Storm. The yellow ribbons are still hugging the neighborhood trees. Even the local weather forecast was routine for March.
Central Indiana weather, afternoon periods of rain, possibly mixed with snow, easterly winds of 15 to 25 miles an hour, temperature remaining in the low to middle 30s. Tonight, rain possibly mixed with snow and breezy, the low 32.
Actually, a mixture of rain, snow, and ice fell throughout the evening. Lights begin to blink around the county as everyone goes about their business. But as the day wears on, quite a few of us lose our electricity. So we already know we'll wake up to a tough day, with icy roads and hazardous conditions. But no one knew just how tough. We didn't have a clue that this was the beginning of 2 weeks we'd remember for the rest of our lives. 2 weeks we'd be telling our children and our children's children about. As the night wears on, the ice coats trees and power lines all over central Indiana. The eerie sounds of falling limbs interrupt an uneasy night's sleep. And then there's the constant rhythmic noise of the rain and ice beating against the roof and windows. But as long as the 3 transmission lines that provide electricity to the city from PSI Energy hold together, we'll still have power available. But by 2:32 a.m., the unthinkable happens. While we slept, the incredible weight of the ice brought down all 3 transmission lines. No one knew that this unprecedented event would plunge the city into a permanent darkness that would last for more than a week, and in some cases, 2 weeks. With the daylight comes a stark reality that this is not just another storm. Ice has downed miles of power lines, blocking roads and devastating Clinton County's electrical service.
We were shocked to see all the light poles laying across the road. I just couldn't believe it. It's almost like it looks like a war zone here.
Nowhere was that devastation more evident than in Frankfort's TPA Park.
Pretty soon the branches just started breaking, and then you would watch this tree, this great big tremendous tree, just fall on the ground, and then not too long after that, another one would fall, and it was just like dominoes. It was just incredible, and you'd wonder when the next one is going to fall. And when you hear the thud, it just made you jump, just to see these great big trees just fall to the ground.
Recognizable scenes were no longer recognizable. Property owners found damage in their own front yards. Trees which once majestically reached for the sky now drooped to the ground in a surrealistic winter wonderland. Williams Road in Frankfort was a corridor of destruction. The narrow city streets of the older neighborhoods, like South Street here, are nearly impassable. All of the county school superintendents canceled school, including Frankfort's Dr. Joe Dixon.
The community schools of Frankfort will be closed for tomorrow. Our feeling is that even if power is reopened, that there are enough downed power lines that would be unsafe for us to try to hold schools. So schools will be closed on Friday of this week.
The damage seemed to be worst in Frankfort, but no county town was spared. Mulberry residents found similar problems. More than 100,000 PSI Energy customers throughout central Indiana are without power. The storm affects a 2,500 square mile area in this north-central portion of the state, and Frankfort and Clinton County are among those areas that are the hardest hit. City Light and Power Superintendent Tom Donahoe tells anxious customers in Frankfort that it could take a couple of days to restore power. But the damage assessment isn't over. The 3 power lines feeding Frankfort are devastated. Hundreds of poles are snapped off, and PSI estimates the damage at $15 million. One 28-mile, 230-kilovolt line from New London to Frankfort is strewn across Interstate 65. Traffic has to be routed off at State Road 28 and then back onto the interstate. Another PSI line from Howard County that runs along Indiana 29 is on the ground. Confusion rules Wednesday morning. No one has electricity. As people face the day, they confront unusual uncertainty. Do I go to work? Is there work to go to? How will all of this affect my life? Many residents flock to Lebanon and Lafayette seeking shelter. Emergency management officials advise people to stay inside for their own safety. Communication comes to a standstill. Shine 99's tower is destroyed by the storm, and radio station WILO is operating under generator power.
We're back on AM 1570 WILO Frankfort at the transmitter site.
The Times publishes a paper by going to Lebanon to print, but home delivery is canceled by the weather, and the newspaper doesn't hit the newsstands until early evening. The weather forecast has an ominous tone.
A winter storm warning for Clinton County and surrounding area for this afternoon. Blowing and drifting snow, freezing rain and sleet, up to 10 inches of snow accumulation possible by this evening.
Fortunately, the snow never comes. But there's enough bad news in the continuing damage assessment as the storm rages on. Thursday morning dawns over the county as residents begin to cope. Frankfort and Clinton County officials begin to assess the damage. Donahoe reports that 60% of the city's distribution system has been damaged, and repair estimates are set at nearly $4 million.
You know, we've been working 10 years on this system to try to put it to a very good, reliable system, and all of a sudden, just in a couple of days, you know, we're turned back to trash, you know, almost turned back 10 to 15 years.
Between 20 and 25 miles of power poles are destroyed. The sobering fact is that power won't be restored anytime soon. A small army of electrical workers amassed to tackle Frankfort's disaster. Private companies and state and municipal utilities not affected by the storm send in work crews. They work 20-hour days. They sleep on cots, some in a local motel. They eat quick, cold meals, but they stay on the job. Frankfort Mayor Don Snyder declares a disaster emergency.
We are going to declare a civil emergency tonight. Unless there's extreme emergencies, people have to stay off the streets. Beginning tonight, the city of Frankfort will be under curfew from 9 to 6 a.m. Only those people with genuine need will be allowed on the Frankfort streets. The police department has been given orders to stop vehicles or pedestrians, issue citations, and possibly make arrests.
Each day, the amount of damage and the estimate of how long it will take to get it fixed seems to get worse. Donahoe estimates that power will be off for more than a week. PSI says it's lost 1,100 transmission poles and more than 2,500 distribution poles. Some telephone service was affected at first, but since most phone lines are underground, our telephones were the mainstay for our communication throughout the disaster. As the first weekend after the storm approaches, people learn to cope without the necessities they've taken for granted. Stores sell all their kerosene heaters, candles, and easy-to-prepare foods. A walk down any street is filled by the familiar hum of portable generators. Businesses slowly find a way to reopen for limited hours. People struggle to find a way to make life normal. Trouble is, there's nothing normal about what's going on. Local emergency management officials like Mike Timmons, the head of civil defense, coordinate efforts with the state for disaster aid. As a new week begins, repair crews are making progress, but thousands of people are still without power. PSI has restored electricity to 85% of its customers, but the city of Frankfort is still without power. The utility is working on lines in a 13-mile stretch along State Road 29 near Flora, Deer Creek, and Kirkland. A small army of utility and contractor employees work around the clock to rebuild the downed line. The total PSI workforce repairing lines throughout central Indiana has reached more than 1,000 men and women. Indiana Governor Evan Bayh declares this a disaster area, making us eligible for federal help.
Obviously, we'll act upon that just as quickly as we can.
On Tuesday, the governor makes a whirlwind visit to Frankfort for a first-hand look. He assures us that the state will do everything it can to help restore power and get life back to normal. During his visit, the governor tours Donaldson Industries, the Clinton County Hospital, Wesley Manor, and various parts of the city.
Folks, if I could just say one word or two, I'm not going to give a long speech here today, but I wanted to come to Clinton County to say just a couple of things. Number one, how much I appreciate and admire the hard work on the part of the representatives of the city of Frankfort, of Clinton County, from the state, the Department of Transportation, and really all of just the private citizens who pitched in and rolled up their sleeves and gotten to work to respond to what has been a very, very difficult situation that Mother Nature has handed to us. I was out at one of the senior citizen centers here in the local community, and it was just heartwarming to see how people have been taken in from the community, neighbor helping neighbor, everybody pitching together. And I'd kind of like to think that's one of the things that makes our state special.
Meanwhile, on the day of the governor's visit, PSI's massive effort to rebuild its devastated power line system pays off even sooner than expected. And at 3:55 p.m. on Tuesday, March 19th, 2 days ahead of schedule, power's restored to Frankfort. For many people, though, it's the weekend before their lights come on again, and frustration continues to mount. It was almost anticlimactic when electricity was finally restored. Our lifestyles already had been altered drastically, and we'd all learned how to cope. And then it was over. We all came through the biggest natural disaster to ever hit our county. Tom Donahoe, Mike Timmons, the names of the ice storm were many. But the real heroes were each one of us. We pulled together and found a new sense of community during this shared crisis. We all forged our own little piece of history as we found a way to survive the ice storm of 1991.